Hey everyone, welcome back to Wonderland TCG. My name is Necker Wonderland, and today I have Mad with me
Hi.
and Bones.
Hello.
And today we are going to be continuing our tier list of ranking the CDH commanders, or most of them anyway. It's important to know that we are considering these commanders in a tournament setting. So, jumping right into it, we're going to start with Ikra Bruce.
We're talking about 4-color Nas with this deck. It can only be so bad, right? It's a deck that relies on the 99 like almost exclusively. Bruce and Eker sit there to gain a lot of life to like make a Bolus's Citadel or a Nas better like in a late game theoretically. Though that's not going to happen too much, I don't think. We've touched on John's turbo decks, Maru turbo decks. I mean, it's just all that but combined. You still don't have blue, and you don't have a Timna in the command zone, so you don't really have great card advantage. So it's a deck. It's just not the 99. Like that's what we have to think about, and it's a fine 99.
I don't know. I feel like the logic behind this deck is a little bit flawed because the point is you're running Bruce Ikra to gain life, make your Nas set it up better, like you said. But I feel like that's expecting a lot when you're a deck without counter spells to get to that point in the late game where you're just attacking multiple times with your commanders. And also being a Nas deck, so you're not really slowing down your opponents. You're really just trying to be turbo, but you're turbo that's expecting to gain life by attacking with Ikra or Bruce.
Yeah.
And you're also giving up Timna for this sort of half-baked plan. To me, this is just worse in every way than Timna and Tana.
Yeah, Tim
Yeah.
Natana is just better than this, like in every conceivable way. I think. I don't really think there's a good argument otherwise.
I have seen Tim Natana add Nas lists, but I don't really like that combination and that archetype. I think this is fine for what it is. We talked about the life gain, and yeah, it's a bit silly, but this deck will consistently Nas while still being at like 50 life. So it does do what it wants to do there,
I
but
mean, consistently in like nosing on turn 6 or like 5, which is just not when you want to be doing that.
I feel like life gain in the command zone is still so much less important than the card draw of Timna, and if I was to do the Sans Blue Turbo deck, I would still just rather have Timna than having both of these commanders.
Yeah, there's an argument to be made. It's just not a great one.
Yeah, I mean, there's a plan here. There's a reason you're playing this, but I just don't think the reason is good enough.
yeah, when you're playing those kind of Sans Blue Turbo strategies, you kind of want your commander to do more than what these two do. These can help you, but not as much as you like. Not something like Dargo can do, or Rog, or any other commander. You do get white looking at it like that, so you do have some protection there. Silence effects, Ranger Captain effects, but not much else for interaction besides that. That said, too, you're also missing things like Thassa's Oracle for the turbo win con. Breach isn't as good because you don't have things like Brain Freeze. You're kind of really relying on cards like Witherbloom and Chain Smog, and those are cards you can get blown out by. So, yeah, I'm not in love with this whole deck idea either, but when it does go off, when it does get its engine going, it can be pretty scary.
Yeah, it just feels like the weakest 4-color. Like, what are the weakest 4-color partner pairings you could pick?
Yeah, I feel like it's still weird to rank it on the tier list though, because it's still a four color 99. And in being a four color 99, it's already like a lot better than some other strategies you could be running with less cars and like a less coherent 99. Like we put Brea in C, and Brea does have some unique things to her with being a infinite mana outlet, letting you do things like Hullbreaker and Isorev or whatever. But like I feel like just by virtue of being like a four color like fast deck that at least does have a game plan is like enough to maybe keep it out of the low tiers.
Yeah, I don't think it's bad, but I don't think that's good. I'd say this is probably like bottom of C tier, but it's just play Timna.
I disagree. I don't think you need to play Timna in this deck's case, but I do agree that it is probably towards the lower end of C because you are missing that card advantage, right? So that can be hurtful. Plus, again, not having blue, you don't have Ristic Study or Fish either. So
Yeah, I think maybe like lowish C for me.
yeah, I'm good putting it lowish C right now. Again, we talk about these decks, and C's not a bad placement, right? Like, all these decks can compete, all these decks can do well. With, again, you can make arguments for F, whether you like those decks or not, but besides that, all these are strong decks that have proved themselves at one time or another. Alright, on to our next commander then. We have Inala.
We need to talk about Eminence. Eminence is designed poorly because it's a permanent that sits on your battlefield but also cannot be interacted. Like, it's just always there. It's just something you start the game with, and you don't have to ever cast a Nulla. So automatically stupid value out of the commander, right? It's a ley line every game. And so that's really powerful. The Spellseeker line is not as complicated as people make it out to be, and it's pretty powerful, right? It has some redundancy. If you have the cards in hand to the combo, you just get to find yourself protection, which is really nice. You know, it has some really interesting line with Scholar of the Ages. It has some fun like Dockside Extortion. It's got a lot of really cool stuff. Not to mention, none of that really takes away from still having a very powerful Grixis Turbo Nos 99. Like, you have a bit of a worse Nos having some of these chunky, like, Scholar of the Ages in there, but generally the card quality doesn't go down. And so, deck's really powerful. It's fast, it's threatening, it's Grixis.
Yeah, this is kind of a unique Grixis strategy. You mentioned Adnaz, and I wouldn't even consider this an Adnaz deck, but it's good colors, and it's really synergistic with what you want to do. Again, you mentioned all those cards, and just the synergy with the Eminence ability and the recursion that the deck has with reanimator effects.
Mm-hmm.
There's a saying, right, with this deck, like, if Inala gets to 4 mana, she can just win.
The line is cast Spellseeker, and you only need 1 black mana floating, and then assuming no interaction, you just win.
And you have redundancy in pieces, so even if there is interaction, you're fine.
Yeah, it's a pretty spooky deck. Naturally, it's a little fragile, as is any turbo deck without a card draw source in the command zone. But is there another Grixis commander that does draw you cards?
Nekusar, smile.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
Nekizar,
you don't need, like, Grixis commanders aren't gonna be drawing you cards, right? So when you
Krom Tevesh too.
Kamtavash, yeah.
Oh, Tevish. Yeah, okay, Krom Tevish. Those are a really good option. I like those two. But outside of that, Kess does some powerful stuff. Silas Rog enables some powerful stuff. These are, like, all the Grixis commanders are very powerful enablers, and I think Inala is the most powerful enabler. Like, just in terms of, like, raw threat. Combo's still, interactable. It's pretty predictable. Everybody has heard of Inala. Everybody knows Inala Spellseeker bad. So you do have to play around that to a certain extent, which is difficult, but I think the deck really hasn't lost its teeth ever since Spellseeker came out, right?
Well, I have a hot take. My hot take is that Eminence as a mechanic is fine and not OP broken. And I think that we have learned from printings and from like other stuff that Eminence is not the issue, and the issue was pushing Eminence. I would like to point you towards Arabo, who is extremely fair, and the new Sidar, who they printed with Eminence, who is also just an extremely fair card.
Any card that just doesn't have as good of words on it is going to be worse, even if it's a good mechanic.
I think in casual, it's a lot more busted. And all is kind of the exception for CDH where the effect is just really strong. I wouldn't say busted, but again, something you have to plan around. And this is a card that when you sit down with it at the table, you have to mulligan appropriately, because if you don't, this deck's just going to run you over.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have interaction or you're going to lose.
I actually think this deck is very good. I think it's one of the best Grixis options in my opinion. Again, it's literally just the Grixis 99, which we know is like busted in half, but with an additional 1 card in the command zone. And I think you can play it as such, where it's just a good deck that, by the way, if I get 4 mana and cast Spellseeker, you die.
The two builds are, there's one that's much more leaning heavily into just like a good Grixis 99 with as minimal cards as possible to feed a Nala, and then there's a list that is, completely feeding off of Nala's ability. And I do personally prefer the Nazi, like the standard package a little more.
I mean, I don't know. You can literally just be an insane Grixis deck that also just has a one card, and I like that a lot.
So when you have a pilot who kind of knows what this deck is doing and knows how to play against it, that's when the deck can kind of buckle because they'll be able to tutor or mulligan for those pieces to stop it. And it can fold to the right stacks piece. It can fold to things like Dothby, for example, or similar effects, which I think kind of hold it back a bit. I do think it is still really strong, but for my opinion, I think this is a top of B tier commander.
See, I would argue for A, because while, yeah, there are things that turn off those Spellseeker lines, like, you just have Nas Thoracle Consult. Like, you just have Thoracle Consult. Like, and that's a hard one. Like, unless there's a Torpor Orb, which is going to, that's probably the one that really shatters your dreams. But other than that, it's just Grixis 99, Thoracle Consult, with a lot of tutors. It's just a powerful thing. Not to mention having Wizard Cycling tutors to find Thoracle, which is kind of silly.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
I would argue this as an A tier deck.
For the record, I actually agree on A, with one of my reasons being we have Grixis Malcolm in A, and I think this deck is better than Grixis Malcolm.
Yeah.
Actually disagree on that, but I can yield to the A tier, and I'm comfortable putting it above Grixis Malcolm. So the difference for me is Grixis Malcolm, I think, does the mid range game better, and I think I value the mid range game plan more right now in the current tournament meta. And
Mm-hmm.
Malcolm does have that one win con, right? It's sort of like Anala, but then it also can pivot better, I think, because you have extra value.
I would argue against that. I think the deck just requires like proper piloting. It's a hard deck to pilot. Sometimes if your Spellseeker line gets stopped, you just tutor for like a nice spell to have in your hand, or like the other half of a Thoracle Consult. And I think the deck pivots really well because the plans layer really nicely. Plus the amount of turn one wins in this deck.
I guess my only critique of that would be I've seen this deck in Swiss, but I've never really seen it break into the top 16, at least recently.
That's fair.
But I think bottom of ace fine. I can live with that placement. So I think we can move on to our next pairing of the evening. This time we have Jessica Ishai.
We all know kind of what the Falcon Punch does. It's funny because the bird gets big, and then a flying 7/7 will murder you.
It kills me specifically every time.
It's yeah, it's like it's funny. It has its value. Jessica's a very powerful removal card, but again, you're giving up card advantage. I mean, and naturally you are in Azoria, so you have really good card advantage engines, but you're giving up card advantage for kind of a silly gimmicky command zone. Like Jessica's good, but I don't think she's good enough to hold up a deck on her own. And Ishai doesn't do a lot other than kill people, which sure, that's fair enough sometimes, but I don't think that's the strongest plan in the world. Because it folds to a Path to Exile, and Jeskai colors just aren't great. Like they have the Spellseeker line and they have Underworld Breach, and that's kind of all they got going for them when they don't have something like Elsha in the command zone, right?
I don't know. I actually completely disagree and quite like this deck. I really like Jessica as just an infinite mana outlet in the command zone, letting you go for things like Bomberman. You do just have your Breach combo, which is just very strong.
I did forget Jessica's an outlet. That's my bad.
Jessica is an outlet, and also just being able to pick off the biggest threat and then go for something is pretty interesting. The combat pressure is actually it's actually very interesting because if you just can't deal with it, you're faced with like a very fast clock. Like you don't even have to really like worry or lean into Ishai or anything. It's just a thing you can do to like dissuade people.
Yeah, it's nice that it's a plan that doesn't require any cards in hand.
I actually think Jeskai is fine colors. Jeskai, I think, is just a very, very strong commander that offers a lot. But I mean, I play Minsc and Bill. I'm a big fan of planeswalkers that are removal and infinite mana outlets. We know this.
I do think that I'm kind of in between, right? Like, I love Jessica as an outlet, and you're in good colors to try to play around with that. You have Dockside, you have Bomberman, like you mentioned, a lot of ways to get that infinite mana. And Ishai is something that can put pressure on the board. The only counter I have to that right now is that, like you said, Matt, there's just so much removal in the format right now
Mhm.
that your bird is going to be an easy target for them because
Yeah.
it doesn't have any natural protection on its own. I do think I'm surprised though that no one has been trying to play this deck recently, at least that I've seen, because I feel like it could do really well right now. Jessica again can pick off the board easily.
I just think that it's one of the easiest decks to stacks out. Like, sure, Jessica can remove stacks pieces, but it's like every single one of their wins has like 3 different stacks pieces that are gonna stop it. It's rule of laws, it's oofs, it's graveyard hate for breach lines, and like for Bomberman, it's just a lot of stuff. I think that like slows it down. And the Jeskai, I just don't like Jeskai colors. I just don't think they're great colors.
I don't think you see too many rule laws anymore, at least in this current meta. For the other points too, yes, the stacks can hurt you, but one, I think you're in the some of the best removal colors. And even if you are slowed down, that's when you can just abuse the Jessica and Ishai board presence, right? If you can't cast stuff, you can just try to recast your bird over and over, and eventually they'll run out of removal for it. And eventually they'll keep casting spells, and something will happen one way or the other.
I've just watched this deck kill kill a threatening player with Ishai and then immediately lose to somebody else who was just waiting for that player to be gone.
But I do think playing this kind of like control-y, a bit more control-y, I think would be cool, but I do agree that it is overall, I think, pretty mid
Yeah,
besides
but if you
that.
want to play control, you don't have any card advantage. You see the issue?
Yeah.
I want the deck to be good. It's just a little short, I think, in every department. Like, it's good at a lot of things, but it's not like great at any particular thing. Other than removing creatures. It's pretty good at that.
For my part, I think I like this at bottom of C.
I genuinely think this is bottom of B tier. I think this commander pairing is actually good enough to be there. I think it's underrepresented right now for what it actually can do. And I think you have a lot in these colors with this outlet in the command zone that you could be doing. And I think it's actually very powerful.
Yeah, I'm gonna say this is C tier.
I think then, with all the feedback, I'm comfortable. I'll put it between Captain Sisay and Selvala right now.
Sure.
Kind of higher up in
Yeah.
C, but not like too far up there, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Alright. On to another monocolor commander now. We have Jace, Bryn's Prodigy.
Oh, baby Jace, tiny little 12-year-old boy. I mean, when is the last time somebody actually played this commander? It's been like
I actually have seen it pop up a little bit from time to time.
he has Displacer Kitten now, I guess.
Does Displacer Cannon work with this deck?
I actually was looking through the outdated lists on on the CDH database recently, and I saw Baby Jace was retitled to a Displacer Kitten deck. I didn't really look at it because I wasn't that interested, because I don't think this commander's very good, but I think it's kind of funny.
Okay, I just want to put out there, like, definitely, I don't think Jace is very interesting. I don't think the commander is very good. But if you have the chance and a bit of free time, read the primer because this is actually like an excellent primer.
Honestly, not knowing what any of that says, and not having ever seen the deck, I think, play at a table, I don't want to say too much. But what I am gonna say is that this card is outclassed by a lot of things.
I mean, it's still mono blue storm. It's
Yeah,
not
it's
great.
not great.
Like it's in outdated for a reason. It's a little bit of an outdated deck. It's a little
Can
bit
we just say I'm
outclassed.
happy for him and put him in D tier?
So this deck, like I said, is like a storm deck, right? You're trying to set up a high tide combo. There's also ISO Rev because you can just filter through Jace continuously. Then there's also Displacer Kitten with, I believe it is Cloud of Fairies, but it's about building up a bunch of mana, casting big draw spells like you have Enter the Infinite Time Spiral, Recurring Insight. You can storm off with Mind Desire. It's sort of like if you know the Legacy or whatever High Tide Storm decks, it's a lot like that.
What tier we have Bergie in? Because that's another monocolor manual storm deck. I just don't really I don't see the potential here to be like manual storm's just not awesome. It's
Yeah.
fun, but it's not like the most powerful thing in the world. And it's definitely pretty interactable. Even if you're in mono blue, you just aren't like your card advantage is a little slacking sometimes. Because Baby Jace doesn't actually make card advantage, and when he flips over, he'll like flashback stuff. But
Also, the thing about flipping Jace is then you lose your Ice Rev outlet.
It's also mono blue, right? Like you mentioned Bergie and kind of the difference there is you don't have those cool rituals. You're not getting mana to keep storming off your cards. You don't really have like the one card win con. You have, I guess you have Icer Concept or stuff, but it doesn't feel as good, I don't think.
I'm going to I'm gonna rank it pretty low. I'm gonna say this is probably F tier.
For me, I think this is a D tier deck. I think it is capable of a lot of really explosive good turns. I think the card filtering in the command zone is rather good. And if you decide that you just want to flip it and do stuff like cast High Tide, flashback High Tide, you're capable of some really crazy stuff. You fold the stacks, but I think stacks is really bad in the meta right now, actually. But again, you are very limited to mono blue. But I think I might put this commander in D.
Yeah, I can agree with all that. I think, well, we have Azami in D, right? And this deck is probably better than Azami.
Hmm,
I like it more.
I don't know. I'd say D or F tier. I'd say F tier, but if you guys want to pop it in D, like I have no qualms against it.
Alright, I'll put it at bottom of D tier for now then. Again, middle ground that I'm happy with, I think. Onto a commander that I am sad to say is not good right off the bat, or at least struggles very much right now. And that's unfortunate, because this was like the second CDH commander I tried to brew around. Jaleva.
Yeah, we were just talking about outclassed commanders.
Jaleva's I love her, but Evelyn's just better. She's just worse Evelyn now.
Yeah, the infinite like casting you can do to mill your opponents, mill yourself, and go from there is just so much better. Jaleva's held back because you have to not only attack with her, so you have to wait a turn essentially to try to cast anything that you can to get, and it's limited to just instant and sorceries. And I can't tell you the amount of times that I played this deck that I cast Jaleva, mill or exile the top cards in my library, and I'm just exiling win cons, Underworld Breach, Thassa's Oracle, yeah.
She's pretty outclassed by the other good Grixis decks. Like we've already seen there's so many good Grixis options.
Hmm.
hmm
The 99 being so strong means a lot of these commanders that just do their own unique thing, like with the one card, Evelyn with being like a World Gorger outlet and a Displacer Kitten, whatever. I think each commander has their own thing going for them, and Jaleva doesn't really have something going for her that's good enough to set her apart from the other Grixis decks and make me want to pick her over any of them.
We were saying, right? She can actually hinder you. And we talked about the Grixis shell and how it can only be so bad. It becomes worse when your commander can ruin your own game plan.
Yeah, it is what it is. This is sort of like a lower tier for me, maybe something like D or F.
Yeah, it's I'm just gonna put her in F because she's outdated. Like there's just no reason to play her.
I'm fine putting her top of F, right below Urith.
Yeah, that's fair.
Alright, on to a 5 color pairing then. I say pairing because this is Jensen. Jensen is basically the way you can play 5 color Luris.
Can I just say something right away? You're not casting Luris. Luris costs 6 mana. Luris is not an effect you want to pay 6 mana for. Jensen doesn't do anything besides fix your mana, which is just
The upside to Jensen is that Jensen costs a low amount of mana, so you can really take advantage of like your swats and relics and whatever, and your like Springleaf Drum kind of tech. Mox Chamber, and that helps you get to Luris faster. But the issue is Luris for 6 mana is a
Yeah.
lot. Being able to like recur stuff is very useful. Like for example, get your breach counter to recast your breach, make a lot of mana with pedal and LED or whatever. Use baubles or like use Soul Guide Lantern or whatever as recurring pieces of card draw. But uh like you were saying, if your Luris gets removed, it's gone. Like you can't get Luris back. It's not a commander, it's a companion.
Companion is not a strong enough effect for CDH.
I don't think it's better than other 5 car options. I think most other 5 car options will beat it out. I don't think it's as bad as you're saying. Like it's not a Tog. It has shit it can do. Like Luris is a very powerful effect. Like again, 6 mana is so much. I don't recommend playing this over most shit. Like I'm not even high on this deck, but well, yeah. I mean, like again, I don't think you play this over a lot of other commanders, but it's not like garbage.
I mean, it's 5 color, but it's 5 color garbage.
This is a turbo deck that has legs, right? Like you said, it's low cost commander, so you can get it out early, which is something you kind of want in a turbo deck. And it can do that turbo strategy pretty well. And yes, Luris costs a lot, but it's still backup, right? It's like recursion for the game plan. Your breach gets stopped, you have the option to try to go for it again. I don't love the strategy, but it's at least viable, right?
It's something you could take to like maybe a CDH event and do fine. But I don't recommend it over literally any like maybe over Sliver. I don't run it over Kenrith. I don't run it over Sisei. Don't run it over Nijila. Like you have literally so many other 5 car options that are better.
I mean, besides Najila, though, I do think this is the best turbo 5 color deck you can do. So I give it credit for that.
I feel like I'd rather be playing 4 color turbo than playing 5 color with bad commander.
I agree.
Again, like Laris is fine. It's just the fact that it's removable means that even though it is an extra card in your opening hand, which is good, don't get me wrong.
Well, let's pay 3 mana for an extra card in your opening hand. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, Companion's just not great.
I think it's fine, but I don't think it's particularly great. I might put it in D.
Yeah, D tier. It's still 5 color. I mean, yeah.
Like 5 color turbo is only going to be so bad. You just have a 5 color turbo 99.
I was honestly gonna say C tier. I think for those reasons, right? It's still a good deck. So you're playing the best card still, and it's not as bad as something like we were talking Ikra Bruce, right? Where we don't feel the commanders help the strategy so much. At least this one you can get down early for those relevant effects.
Sure.
That's true. I might put it over Equipers actually.
I mean, this is a deck that can get there, but it's not one you have to fear. You do give it the proper amount of respect, but it's not like going to be a powerhouse anytime soon. With that said, I do think looking at what we have in C tier overall, I'll put it kind of mid C right now. Kind of above the other options we talked about, kind of above like the 4 color Solaris package that we've reviewed in the past, above Equa Bruce.
That's fair. I might put it above Gale Scion. Like right above Gale Scion.
Yeah, sure.
Alright, on to Timna Jeska now.
Yay! A deck I really, really, really like.
So we've talked about Timna being really good. You heard me talk about Jessica Ishai being Jessica being removal and an infinite mana outlet in the command zone. Well, what if you took that and paired it with the best partner commander
Mm-hmm.
and in colors that are really good for turbo? Black red is really good at going fast. White is pretty decent at protection when it comes to something along the lines of Grant the Polisher or Silence, or literally just having the best partner in the command zone. And then white also gives you, again, Bomberman. You have World Gorger Dragon animate that if you want to do that. I think this is a very, very solid commander pairing. I think Mardu Nas, because that's what this is. This is Mardu Turbo at Nas, is very strong. And I don't think it's like S tier or anything, but I think it is very good.
I mean, yeah, I don't think it's an S tier deck. I'm gonna say right away this is an A tier deck. I mean, it's Mad Farm. Mardu's always gone really fast. This deck was really powerful when it was Bruce and it was just running off Tymna power. So now that it has one of the most irrelevant, like partner, like we talk about partners, the best 5 partners in like indisputably, Tevish, Jessica, Tymna, Thras, Malcolm. Right? Any 2 of those together is gonna make a good deck. And these are 2 of the best of them in some really great colors to do some really cool shit. You know, you got a lot of really good win cons, and you are able to go just insanely fast. So I don't know. I don't have bad things to say about this deck. I mean, it doesn't have blue. That's the bad thing.
That's the worst thing about the deck is that you are not in blue, but just Tymna in the command zone
Hmm.
plus Breach plus, infinite mana combos is just a pretty good
It just does a lot
package.
of stuff really well. Goes really fast. It draws a lot of cards. It removes the stacks pieces. It stops wins. It's good. Good deck.
So right off the bat, we have to acknowledge that it did win a tournament, and I think it top four'd another tournament right after.
Oh
So it's
yeah.
gotten results. I still am not as high on it as you two seem to be. I'm actually looking at this as like the top of B deck. Like all the strategies you highlighted are really good. But I think when I've seen the deck played and when I've played decks like Mardu, it just always feels like it's just short from being like the powerhouse that the other A decks are. It's really good still, don't get me wrong, and it still can win games easily, as evident, but you're still on the World Gorger Dragon, package.
I don't think you should be.
You don't have to be, but you can be.
But those are what the 2 decks that placed were running. And like things like your Breach, again, they're good, and when you go off and you can go off safely, it's really good. But the lines are just clunky enough at times where I think it's held back a bit. And the way the meta's looking right now,
I don't know. It's very easy to get a Jessica on 3. It's 5 mana. You cast Tymna. You cast Jessica. You cast Jessica again, and you're already removing every like prevalent stacks piece in the format. And then you have your silencing effects for those blue decks that are going to hit you. I don't know. I think its backup plan is really strong because if you're just drawing cards with Tymna and casting Jessica a lot, that's a pretty good plan. I have nothing but good things to say about this deck. I always have a good time playing this deck. I'm always scared of this deck when I see it at the table. I don't know.
I have to agree. I think it's just a very, very good deck.
I think we can pop it an A. Like I understand some of the hesitance on it, but
yeah, I mean, again, I don't think it's a bad deck. It's just I don't think it's quite there. But I'm fine putting it bottom of A for right now. Alright, we have Jetmir now.
Naya Stack's bad. Maddie's not going to say anything else.
Yeah, let me take this one because Matt's opinion on any Naya Stack deck is just terrible. Move on. F tier. So Jetmir has the advantage of having probably one of the like biggest available combat pressure just commanders in the stacks game. You have Timna Kamal, that's card draw and combat pressure that I think is better. But Jetmir is able to provide a really dangerous, really fast clock that can dish out a lot of damage really fast. It's scary. The only issue I have with this deck is you're sort of really relying on your deck to give you what you need at the specific times. You have green to tutor out stacks pieces that you need, but the fact that you don't really have any card draw and your commander is just combat pressure is a little bit rough. And I feel like you'd much rather have some form of advantage when it comes to like cards and not just combat. Another thing I really want to point out, and I mentioned this earlier, but I really want to touch on this, is that stacks right now in the meta is rough. Mid range, slower, grindy, strong game plans are very powerful right now. And most decks can grind through, find their answers, tutor for what they need, and remove your stacks and go off through even like a fully stocked out board. So I think now is probably one of the worst times to be on a stacks deck. And a stacks like deck like this that doesn't really offer card advantage and is just combat pressure, while still like something reasonable you could be doing. There's a reason to play this commander if you like being able to really pressure life totals. It's just not something I would recommend right now. And there was even another Naya Stacks commander that just released. Well, it doesn't even have to be Stacks, but just another Naya commander that just released that I think is just a lot more interesting. If I had to rank Jetmir, I would think what he offers is very interesting, very reasonable, and there is a good reason to be playing him. But I think the way the current meta looks and the fact that you don't have inherent card advantage, the fact that you need 3 color pips, the fact that you have to protect him because he doesn't really protect himself, I say would land him somewhere in the D row for me right now. Maybe like a bit lower D. If I had to play Shatner, it'd be right above Amanatu.
That's actually right around where I was thinking. I was thinking like right above Bergie, but I feel the same way, right? You're in a mid-range meta, and mid-range benefits really well from stacks because it slows the game down just enough for them to be able to assemble the win. Jetmir is win con the stacks most of the time, which in a tournament setting isn't always great because you have to play against the clock too. Yes, this makes it easier because it pumps your creatures, but again, creature removal is so high right now. Toxic Deluge is around a lot, Fire Covenant, all those kind of board wipe effects, which just completely shut down what you're doing. Yes, you're in Naya, which means you can play the creature based tutors. You could tech in things like Kiki Jiki packages to try to go like that, but even then, that's not what your deck wants to do, so it could be a bit clunky. So yeah, I kind of think that the D spot we mentioned is pretty good.
F. Well, we've already discussed why Stacks is just not awesome right now. And Yetmir is a win con. I get it. But, like, Naya colors are already famously just pretty ass.
I so disagree with that.
I don't know, man. It doesn't do enough of anything well. I think Kamal is way scarier. Way like you can still cast them reasonably in green, and you can play any other commander that helps you out more than Yetmir. He just doesn't do anything. He wins the game, I guess, sometimes, maybe, if you have a lot of creatures on board, and also if your opponents don't have blockers, and also if they don't have removal, and also if it's like turn 12.
Jetmir kills your opponent through blockers. Jetmir gives all your shit like vigilance.
He gets
and
fucking swords to plowshare, dude. I don't care. He's bad. He's really, 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 really bad. Okay, I'm done.
I don't think he's that bad, but
No, he's that bad. Don't defend him. Stop.
I think Jetmir is
No,
genuinely
move on.
fine. 3+0 trample, double strike, and
God,
vigilance is
please
so
stop reading the
hard to
words on
beat
him.
with.
I know what they are.
Not hard to find a single protection piece with green tutor.
yeah, the green tutor adds extra consistency, which is good, which I think places it above the white win con stacks decks we have in F. All right, but we can look now to one of the Joyras we have today, Joyra Ageless Innovator.
This commander is basically like if you played Aether Vial in your command zone, but for artifacts and also a little silly. I don't know, man. Like, sure, you can put artifacts into play without being countered. Whoop-de-doo. You also have to play your 2-mana commander, wait for it to untap. You have to tap it to play a 2-mana thing, and then maybe there's some goofy ass line you can do that requires like 4 cards. It's not good. Just don't do it. Just don't do it. Just don't think this card is good. Like, I know you want it to be good, but don't think it's good. Just play the other one. Just play the other Joyra. Can we just talk about the other Joyra and put this in F tier?
So this one is weird, right? Because yes, it's definitely the lesser Joyra, and this one requires a lot more setup for you to be able to combo. You need something like an infinite untap, or you need to have like a Reckless Fire Weaver or Altar of the Brood, and you also have to have a creature that you can bounce something whenever it enters the battlefield.
So okay, just so we know what the win cons should be for this deck. I was playing like Isochron Scepter, I think is a primary win condition.
Hmm.
I am in agreement with Mad, and I think this commander is just not good.
Oh yeah, Reality Chip and Top. You can put those all out too. That's kind of funny. I mean, it's just like play it better, is it, Commander?
This deck is so mid, and the commander doesn't really do anything. Like I've already talked to. I don't even like the better commanders that you need to untap with them to do anything.
Yeah, the best
Yeah,
commanders in it are pretty bad. So like not bad, but not great. So the bad commanders in Izzet are bad.
I don't like this. You're two colors. You barely have any advantage. You
It makes stuff uncounterable in a deck that plays blue. Yeah.
just play Malka.
Yeah, just play Malcolm, man. Be a normal person.
yeah, I agree. This one doesn't really hold up. It did get like a placement when it first got released, but haven't seen it since, and I just think it doesn't do enough. Yeah, it requires a lot of setup too, so I'm fine putting this one in F tier. I'll probably put this one like above Atla.
Sure.
That sounds about right.
On to Jorah Weatherlight Captain. The inferior Weatherlight Captain, but still the better Jorah.
Yeah, she's not great as good at it. But okay, so this commander casts a historic spell, or is it just artifact? Right? Wait, which one is it?
Historic.
Historic, yeah.
Okay. But that's artifact. So it like yeah, this card's cool. It does a funny little manual storm thing. It's got some kick to it. It's an is it deck like I think we all know what this deck does. We know what it folds to. It just folds to artifact stacks really bad. It folds to rule of laws. It folds to like card draw limiters like Narset. Folds to a lot of stuff. Commander's 4 mana, which is kind of expensive for is it. I don't know. She's cute, a little silly, but not very good.
Yeah, we were talking a lot about like manual Storm and like is it Storm like Aruth and stuff. And this game plan is very similar, where it's like you're playing a an Izzet deck that can go fast, can draw lots of cards, but is pretty easily shut down by effects, including removal on your commander, which you're really reliant on to be
There's a
drawing these
lot of ways to
cards.
interact with her.
Yeah,
I feel like this deck is like a lot of Izzet decks, a bit too fragile for my liking. It's too easily interruptible, even with your counter magic. It's just you're really playing protect the queen while also trying to run enough shit to storm off with her.
I will say though, like yes, Manual Storm can be rough. She can do it pretty well, I think, though, right? Like you get her down probably turn 2, if not turn 1, and then
Mm-hmm.
you can just start to get immediate value with 0 drop or 1 cost artifacts, which refuel your hand, which can be really good. Yes, you can be stopped, but unlike other manual is it commanders, you can at least get that card advantage early on, and it's harder for your opponents to interact with you, right, on the stack because what are they going to interact with? Like, they're not going to counter your spell bomb, they're not going to counter those weird things that are getting you the value. So you have the potential to draw a lot of interaction before you even cast something that's worth countering. Yes, you can remove Joyra. Yes, you can stax her out. Notion Thief really hurts what this deck tries to do, but
Oh, Master.
it can at least beat some of the effects that hurt it, I think, pretty well. And even if you do get stacked out, you can sandbag a hand until you wait for the removal pieces, unlike something like Urith, which actively hurts you if it's on board in your stacks.
I mean, Joy doesn't do things bad per se. It's just the fact that her plan in general is just pretty weak, pretty interactable, very like everybody knows what it is. It doesn't make her awful, but she's not super great. I would comfortably put her bottom of D tier or top of F, just because I don't know. Manual Storm kind of weak, and I mean I don't know. Maybe D tier probably. I wouldn't say F. Let's say D tier.
I think this commander is better than Aerith, and Aerith is at the top of F.
Yeah, let's put it in bottom of D. Sure.
Well, we have Jace at the bottom of D, and I think she's a much better Manual Storm commander than Jace is.
Well, let's put her over him and then. But
And like looking at what we have True Lane, we have Revi,
I would compare her to Chulane. I think Chulane and Joyra are in the same breed of pretty good. They draw a lot of cards.
I might put it right above Chulin.
I'm fine with that. Putting it like add that space on D tier. And that's going to do it for today. Those are the commanders that we were going to highlight. So thank you so much for joining us. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next installment of this series that we're doing. We still have a bunch of commanders to talk through, but we'll be seeing you soon.
Peace out.
Bye. Have a good night. Remember to hate everything.
No.